Hello, everybody, and welcome to Grand Slam KBO, our weekly podcast on the Korean Baseball League. This is week 12 for us, and on this show, we'll be looking at umpire controversies and blown calls after a difficult weekend for the officials at Gochak Sky Dome. There's hysterical reactions to Kia Tigers' terrible bullpen and the 10th edition of Grand Slam KBO Hall of Fame. We're all on social media at Grand Slam KBO and at Chimek Baseball. Check out our YouTube channel for more videos and content on the Korean Baseball League. My name is Andrew Farrell, and for the second week in a row, we are broadless as Messrs. Hyder and Dene are engaged, but Matthew Care is back on the show again. Hi, Matthew.
Hello, Andrew. How you doing?
I'm not too bad. We're recording this on a Monday. You're back to work after your Korean summer vacation.
If you could call it that. Rained out for half the week, and then all of my plans got scuppered by a COVID spike. So, yeah, that's a thing that happened.
Did you
You had a bit of an eventful week as well. You went on ESPN. I was going to join you, but COVID kind of persuaded me that it wasn't worth risking mine and my wife's health just to go and be on TV.
Yeah, be on TV for about 16 minutes maybe. That was our second time on. I know you watched the telecast as well. It was slightly different content to the last time. Like, as you remember, the last time they asked us about Chimek and cheerleaders and a lot of kind of fun stuff. But this time they actually wanted some information on bullpens, the NC Dinos, the KT Wiz. And they asked me who my favorite player was. And I was really happy that I got to say Najuan.
I'm surprised you didn't bring up the Soju story, though. That fan falling from the outfield.
I know. And I was trying to...
That is still a legendary moment that they need to be aware of. Everyone needs to know about that. Just him looking down at this comatose body in the outfield, just saying, what am I supposed to do with this? Eat it? I don't know.
Yeah, it was great. Like, they did kind of catch me off guard a little bit with it. But, and like, I think like most people who go on to that sort of a show will say, from a Tigers point of view, maybe Yang Yan-jang, or from Lotte Giants, maybe Ide Ho, Pak Young-tak. I always kind of feel that Najuan is a different type of an answer, but also they probably had no idea who was. Maybe they had no idea who I was talking about. I have no idea. There were no follow-up questions to Najuan.
Who did you end up picking for fifth in the playoff race? I don't remember. I just remember that on Twitter I disagreed with you and said that KT would end up nipping it from both of our teams.
I think I went with Lotte in the end, just ahead of the Tigers and KT, because perhaps KT just don't have the depth, but there's no team. I don't have the stats in front of me, but I get the feeling that over the course of August, there's no team that seems to be putting together as many wins as they are, or as many runs of form as they are too. So at the moment, it looks like KT, but with 60-odd games to go, I just get the feeling they'll fall a little bit short.
Fair enough. I'm still thinking KC will probably nip it, but who knows? We could see a downturn in either Doosan or LG and have one of them drop out and see another one go up. That'd be nice.
It'd be nice if Doosan dropped out. It's hard to see, but it would be nice if Doosan took some time off. We might as well bring in our special guest. And this seems like a really appropriate time to do so, because he's showing his dog to our camera. Unfortunately, this is not a video one. This is audio only. Mr. Rob Smith of Gwangju FM and my KBO fame for ranting incessantly about the Kia Tigers players that he doesn't like.
Yeah, I may be the angriest person on the my KBO Facebook page. It's quite possible.
Especially about your own team too.
Oh yeah, in general, my anger directly correlates with Kia's success. So if they're having a great week, it's going to be all rainbows and sunshine. But based on this past week, there were certainly a few angry rants on there and a couple of healthy debates that were emotionally charged, to say the least.
I think
so perfectly normal discourse then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, the game thread for Sunday's games on my KBO seemed to be dominated by myself and yourself, Rob, just wondering who's going to be the next Kia Tigers bullpen pitcher to blow a game, and we were almost proved correct yet again. We'll get on to that in a second. How long have you been in Korea, and how long have you been supporting this Kia Tigers baseball team?
I moved to Korea in 2004, and I was a very, very loose fan of Kia for my first probably 3 years, I barely followed the team. They were at the old Mudung Stadium back in those days. I think I went to like a couple of games, maybe in my first couple of years. And I'd say probably around 2007, 2008 is when I started watching them on TV a lot more. And then obviously 2009 was a very big year for all Kia fans, because that's the year that they had Che Sup raking, and the other guy that is now disgraced in the KBO, who we cannot name. They were their sort of like 1-2 punch offensively.
Tugboat, okay.
Yes, the guy that got caught doing naughty things to himself. So those were their two offensive stars that year, and they had Lopez pitching. He was really good that year, and that's of course the year that Naji Wan became the young legend when he hit the walk-off home run in Game 7 at Jamshil.
I find it hard to imagine Najiwan ever being young. He just seems like he came into being at this age and has just always been this angry Ajashi-looking guy.
He was a young chubby baby back in those days, if you see the video.
Yeah, bawling his eyes out, crying for about 20 minutes. The post-game telecast just seemed to feature Najiwan crying and Che Sup following him around the field, trying to get another hug in there. Nobody else was allowed to hug Najiwan that day apart from Che Sup. But it's a funny video. And I saw Ejon Baum, of course, back then. Like, you saw some of these players who are good for the Tigers, and they've now since retired. And we've had one championship win since then, which was another good season. But by and large, I was kind of looking at this today before you came on. Kia almost always have a poor season, and yet twice in your 17 years here, they managed to put together 2 championship-winning seasons that came out of nowhere because they did nothing before or after those seasons. But when you look at Matthew sitting here, and anybody listening to this who's an LG Twins fan or Hanwha Eagles fan, they would kill for those type of nights out that we had. But they're really one-off. They're actually quite fluky when you look back on what they did before and after that.
Yeah, the 09. I've lived in Gwangju my entire time, but that weekend for Game 6 and Game 7, I was actually in Seoul, and we got tickets to Game 6, and I was in Jamshil, and they lost. And the next day was the Cuttysark conference that I was supposed to attend, and we were literally sitting in the opening ceremony. And my buddy messaged me, and he's like, "Hey, you're going to watch Game 7? I'm like, "Of course, it's on." I made the mistake of thinking that it started at 5 p.m. And he's like, no, the game starts at 2. And this was like around, the opening ceremony was, I think, between 11 and noon or something like that. And me and about 5 buddies, I spread the word quickly. I'm like, "Hey, guys, the game actually starts at like 2 o'clock. And so we literally watched the opening ceremony of the Cuttysark and booked it for the exits and went to Itaewon to one of the watering holes and watched Game 7 all afternoon. So and it was crazy because we walked into this bar and no one was interested because it was Kia versus SK, and nobody really cared. They had like some other bizarre random sport on, and we were like, where is the KBO championship? And then we had to get them to change the channel. And for the next, like, it was probably a 5-hour game, because that was a wild game that Kia was down like 5 or 6 runs or something, and
down that game,
and ended up coming back. So we were there all afternoon and had quite a few adult beverages, obviously, and had a great one of those all-time sports moments where when he hit that home run to walk it off, the whole table just goes nuts, and we're all hugging each other, and the rest of the bar is looking at us like we're like, who are these clowns, But we were a bunch of Gwangju boys celebrating in Itaewon that night. So it was one of those great Korean memories for sure.
Cool, good stuff. We'll get back onto a little bit more about the Tigers and their miserable week when they lost 5-1-1 a little bit later on. There are some games on now, so whatever we say in relation to the current KBO standings might be out of date by the time that this podcast goes out. But as we were mentioning this a little bit earlier on there, when Matthew brought up the issue of who's going to finish fifth. The KT Wiz are currently sitting in fifth spot at the moment, just ahead of Matthew's Lotte Giants. The Tigers, who at one point at the beginning of this month were sitting in third spot, clearly they had no business being there, are now back then to seventh. And I would put it to you guys that I don't think Samsung seven games back from a 500 record. They're not in particularly good form at the moment. Do you think it's time that we can write off the bottom three teams for potentially making the playoff run? Do we think Samsung Lions are going to join Hanwha and SK at sitting it out from here on in?
They don't seem to be putting the results together against the teams that are pushing for those playoff spots right now. So they just lost convincingly against Lotte in 2 games. They had a difficult time against Doosan and LG before. Whatever uptick in form they had before, it just seems to have disappeared somewhere. There's something missing, and I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah, Samsung, they were playing really good baseball like a month and a half, 2 months ago, and just quietly fell off the radar and have been plummeting down the standings ever since.
Yeah.
And it doesn't get easier because they host LG for a couple this week. And then they go to Daejeon, so they should have 2 freebies against them. And then they are on the road at the Dome against Kiwoom. So, I mean, this upcoming week, 4 of 6 are pretty tough games. So I don't see them in the short term doing much and making a run. And yeah, it's strange because they were right neck and neck with Kia about a month ago and have really fallen down the table for sure.
Well, that's the thing. You say that it should be a freebie against Hanwha. I'm not actually convinced right now because Hanwha are giving LG hell at the moment. Like, they beat them yesterday. They're winning right now at time of recording 2-1, and they've got 2 guys on with nobody out.
Ace low now.
And just went that way. And Samsung split the series with SK earlier in the week. So I don't know. Like, they may even struggle against Hanwha at this point.
Something you said to me there during the week. I don't know if it was this week. Last week, Rob. We were talking about Lotte. It kind of picked up a little bit of form this month when the Tigers were beginning to slip a little bit. And we both kind of came to the same conclusion then that Lotte would probably just fall back a little bit again, that maybe the form that they're on is not representative of how good they really are. Is that your opinion currently? Do you think Lotte have a very, very serious chance of finishing top 5 or even higher than that?
I would say Matthew is much better equipped to answer that and analyze his own team than me. It's my opinion of Lotte is just essentially based on their historical failures over the last few years, where they sort of tease their fans into thinking that they're good and they're gonna turn the corner and go on a run, and then a couple of weeks later they'll lose 6 of 7 and fall back to where they were before. So I don't know. It's weird because at the start of the year that offense looked scary good. Like that, their top 6 or 7 guys all look like legit hitters. And we talked at the time, because remember they were like in first place or something after the first week or 2.
Yeah.
And everyone said, and I said at the time, if they can just get some half decent starting pitching, they should be able to knock on the door of the playoffs. And I mean, I guess Matthew would know better than me that I guess their starting pitching, other than Straley, hasn't really done too much. Is that a fair assessment?
Like, surprisingly, the starting pitching's done more than I thought it would. Like, my boy No Kyung-in has been a legend this season.
you love that guy.
Tell you what, I too was a doubter. I didn't believe in No Kyung-in and his power to just defy time on the level of Julio Franco. I swear that he does a seance with him every day or something, and then just channels that divine energy into his games. Like, whatever he does, it's working. Like, Lotte didn't even pick him up last season. They let him sit and go to Geelong, Australia. Or Geelong, Korea for a season.
Career ERA like over 5 or something? Like, it's not very good, I think.
Not very good, but bear in mind, when he was getting paid like $60,000 a year, which is pennies for a starting pitcher. He was pitching better than some of the foreign pitchers in the league. Like, he ended up pitching, what was it, a 4.3, 4.5 ERA for the season 2 years ago. And he's on pace to do that again this year. Like, had he been in Lotte's lineup last year, they may have avoided being like down in the basement.
Good. So we can definitely get on to Lotte in a bit. We had a good chat about them last week as well. We might pick up a Lotte fan sometime soon and get their thoughts on it. We'll get back onto the Tigers later on. There's plenty to say on that too from disgruntled Rob Smith. But before we move on to that, let's just have a quick
Before
chat.
we do that, I do want to say one thing though. Starting pitching, better than I thought, but what let Lotte down for most of their losses this season? Run support.
Yeah. Well, they seem to be picking that up now.
Apparently. I'm done. Carry on.
Yeah, a bad weekend for KBO umpires, and I'm talking specifically about the Gochak Sky Dome when the Kiam Heroes hosted the Kia Tigers at the weekend. A game that was probably decided on an awful call in the 8th inning with the Tigers 3-0 up on Saturday. And then more controversy on Sunday as Kia's manager, Matt Williams, was ejected from the game. I'll let you fill in the details here, Rob, for anybody listening to this who didn't get to see all of this. Can you tell us exactly what happened first off on Saturday?
So on Saturday, relief pitcher Jang Hyung Shik, who was recently acquired from the NC Dinos in a trade, he came in relief in, it was the 8th inning, right? Bottom of the 8th.
Yeah.
And I believe he retired the first batter that he faced, so there was nobody on. And then the Kiwoom number 3 hitter, Lee Jung-hoo, came to the plate, who we all know is one of the best hitters in the league, which pains me to say that because we wish he was a Kia Tiger and he's not. And he crushed one to deep center field. And Kim Ho-ryung, who didn't start the game, who was specifically brought in the 8th inning to be a defensive replacement for Chae Won-jun for very obvious reasons. He tracked it down at the warning track and jumped, made a leaping catch, backhanded, crashed into the wall, maintained possession of the ball, kind of twisted his arm in the air. The ball never dropped, hit the ground, hit the wall. Nothing happened that would have warranted it being a hit. So yeah, Ho-ryung came back, turned to the infield, like he knew it was a catch, and he basically just casually tossed it in. The umpire inexplicably decided that the ball came loose or hit the wall or something, and ruled Jung-hoo to be safe. He made it to second base. The problem was that Kia had already used 2 challenges earlier in the game, so they had no more reviews, so they couldn't challenge the play. So the ruling on the field stood, and essentially that's when the floodgates opened. As both of you know, KBO bullpens are all about momentum, and once the floodgates open and something bad happens, usually that snowballs into something really bad happening. And so instead of nobody on with 2 out, which it should have been, there was 1 on with 1 out, and then Jang gave up a couple more hits, and then I think it was the number 6 hitter came up with them trailing by 2 runs, and there were 2 guys on, and he just crushed a meatball fastball right down the middle, just crushed it to left field for a 3-run homer. All of a sudden, a 3-0 lead turned into a 4-3 deficit, and that was it. He came up in the 9th, didn't score the tying run. Ball game, 4-3 for Kiwoom. So yeah, obviously, Kia fans and Kia players, especially Kim Ho-ryung, he was devastated. He was in the dugout, and there was a classic shot of him being consoled. He was almost in tears, being consoled by Hong, the relief pitcher, saying, it's okay, you'll be all right, type thing. It was just one of those emotional KBO moments caught on camera, but very, very frustrating from a Kia fan perspective, no doubt.
It's kind of frustrating from a fan perspective in general because the umpires have been wildly inconsistent throughout the whole season.
Yeah. And don't get me started on the strike zone, because every night I'm watching, and my buddy and I, we literally message each other back and forth like, that was a strike. Yep, that was a strike. Like, just complete ridiculousness. And as you guys know, the robots are in the Futures League now, giving assistance to the umpires. And if that project goes well for the rest of this year and the rest of next year, it could be as soon as 2022 where, like, the radar umpire becomes a thing in the actual KBO. So
Skynet will go live.
Yes. So we'll see what happens, but
So just on Saturday's game, then that's not even a controversial call. That's an appalling call that it can't go one way or another, like we're about to discuss for what happened on Sunday. We're all agreed that that was an appalling piece of officiating. Maybe the Tigers would have lost the game anyway. Who knows how it would have worked out? But I think we're all in agreement that was terrible umpiring, correct?
It was a catch. There's like no debate in my opinion. It was a clear catch. I think the umpire saw like half of the ball sticking out of his glove.
Yeah.
A snow cone, as we call it. But the replay clearly showed that he maintained control, didn't hit the wall at all, and it was a catch. And he blew it, essentially. The umpire blew that call.
And then I'm just going to lead you into until Sunday, and maybe I could, Matt, if you want to come in this one then as well. So you already mentioned there, Rob, that the strike zone seemed to be moving all over the place yesterday. I've seen games like this before. It seemed to be really bad yesterday with the inconsistency of balls that are called strikes and vice versa. The Tigers race into a 6-3 lead, and then it's 6-4. We're into the bottom of the eighth, and they're still leading 6-4. And the game is then tied off a wild pitch. The game is tied, and there's a 3-minute review. And as the rule is, if the decision can't be overturned after 3 minutes, the on-field decision must stick. And the on-field decision was that the runner was out at home plate. And the umpires then decided to call that as interference by the pitcher. So anything else you need to add into that, Matt?
Well, as it is, in terms of the timing, it definitely should have stood as the on-field decision. The rule was implemented because of last year not being consistent in terms of replay time. Some of them taking upwards of 7 or 8 minutes last year, I believe, for a couple of the calls to be overturned. Like, I remember one of a Lotte game last season where it took like 7 minutes to rule a ground rule double when it should have been a home run. But
wow,
that's one for another day. It was that weird stadium over in Ulsan where Lotte have like the yellow line further ahead than where the barricade is. It's a weird little stadium. I like it, but it's weird in design. But for yesterday's game, what ended up happening was the pitcher ran up to catch the ball. And like, I get it. It's a bang play. And it's one of those where you don't have time to really think about where you're going. But as far as my understanding, I'll preface this by saying I'm not an umpire. I am not trained as an umpire. This is my opinion from talking to people who are umpires. And that's basically saying the onus is on the catcher or whoever's making the play to give a base path or to give a run, a path that the guy can go to try to get to home plate. By him putting his foot there before he'd got the ball in his possession, the guy sliding, I think it was Ungbin for Q, basically had to tuck his shoulder around the foot and ended up being called out because of it. Like, if that foot wasn't there and instead it was on the front of home plate, as most catchers are trained to receive the ball before applying a tag now, if it was in that position, I don't think he applies the tag in time and he would have been called safe. So in terms of the review ruling that it was obstruction or obstructing the base path or blocking the plate even, that's absolutely right. However, what Williams was going into was basically saying that because of the 3-minute rule, you cannot then change the results. You cannot overturn the call because your time's expired. It's the league rule. And that's where I think he got into it with Chair Suwon afterwards. I believe he was the crew chief or the home plate umpire, and basically said, you cannot do that. You're breaking your own rule on a whim, basically. And I believe he was quoted as saying it was the best bit of umpiring he'd done all night after he got thrown out.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Best
That
bit
was,
he'd done
that
in
was the
3
quote.
days.
Yeah. On the field, he walked up with the translator, and he didn't scream or anything, but he clearly said, 3 minutes has expired. The rule is, if the 3 minutes expires, you can't overturn it, and that's it. And he looked at the umpire, and he made the P in the air, and he said, "This game is now being played under protest." And the mics picked him up. It was great. They had the hot mic, listening to the conversation, and he said, "This is because you made the wrong decision again." And then he walked away, and he said it again. He said again twice, because he was obviously frustrated with the call the previous day, and two days in a row where these plays both negatively impacted Kia and their chances. Obviously, was very frustrating for the manager, players, and obviously us as fans, being Kia fans. Really stunk, and that made it 6-6. I thought Kiwoom was going to win at that point, but then in the top of the ninth, who came up? Andrew's favorite player, number 14, Kim Gyu-sung, with a career. I think he has 1 home run this year. He's like a rookie. He's really young, and he weighs about 130 pounds, soaking wet. He's a twig. And he promptly crushes one over the right field wall off of the Kiwoom closer, who had an ERA of like 0.74 or something for the season. And I think you mentioned he had only given up 1 other home run all year.
Yeah, and that was to Ramos. The company that Kim Gyu-sung has somehow found himself in. So, well, again, we have a quick chat about Key in a second, but are we in agreement, first off, that the call is the correct one, that it's interference, but we absolutely side with Matt Williams in this, that if it's a 3-minute rule, that's it. It doesn't matter what the call is.
The rule exists so it can be followed. Like, ultimately, it was the correct call, but damn straight. Like, if the 3 minutes are up, that's it. You can't overturn it at that point. That's the rule.
Yeah. For me, I'm not 100% certain on the interference call. And yesterday, I was very emotional and very against the call initially. Obviously,
it would be blocking the plate, I believe, is the call. Interference would be interfering with the guy trying to make the play.
Yeah, my whole point was, it's like, where else is the pitcher supposed to put his leg in that instant? Because he just ran quickly. He didn't plant his foot there intentionally. He just caught the ball, and that's where his leg was naturally. But I do understand the point of, if his leg wasn't there, then the guy would have been safe. So I guess I can concede the point, even though as a Kia fan yesterday, I was not in favor of the call. But the 3-minute thing is not debatable. It's a very simple thing. Get the clock going, and 3 minutes expires, move along. And it was very frustrating, obviously.
Can we take a moment here real quick to acknowledge the closer for Kiwoom, though? Have you guys seen his mugshot?
He looks like a criminal, doesn't he? He looks very angry.
Yeah, like, his eyes look like that super, like, lens flare in the back of the eyes at night, dark murder mystery killer. He looks like that guy. He looks like he's going to follow you and stab you in a dark alley.
I did notice that last night, because I'm always on the app and looking at player profiles and stuff, and I saw his picture and thought the same thing, that he might be the nicest guy in the world. We don't know, but his picture is very thug-like for sure.
Who knows? Maybe that's part of, like, even after that disastrous outing where he got a 54 ERA yesterday, but he's still at like a 1.18 for the season. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
he could be the guy that gets him with the addition of like Addison Russell. That could be the type of thing that sees him win a championship. This is a weird question I'm going to ask both of you, because if you follow other sports, you do tend to see things like this, just say like in rugby and football. I'm guessing in hockey as well, Rob, that when a call or a couple of bad calls go against a team, and these are really high profile moments on Saturday and Sunday, do you think there's the possibility that subconsciously that the umpires who are officiating the Tigers games on Tuesday and Wednesday might do their absolute best not to find themselves in a position like that, and the Tigers could inadvertently then pick up a couple of calls that maybe they shouldn't?
Ooh, that's a really tough question.
Make-up calls across games.
Because, yeah, in theory, you want umpires to be neutral in all cases, but the reality is there's that human element where, I mean, the easiest example I can think of in hockey is when there's a debatable penalty called, like a trip or something, 9 times out of 10, the next penalty against will be called against the opposite team, right? And it's sort of like a not a makeup call, but the commentators are like, well, I guess the other team better watch out because they just got a borderline penalty called for them, so they're probably going to get one called against them next, which often happens in hockey. But as far as baseball, it's pretty tough to argue like, oh, in the next game with a different crew, they're gonna be on edge and try and give Kia, because the reality is, yeah, they got to remain independent. It's a different crew, so I don't think that's going to have any effect in series going forward, and I don't think it should either.
Sure.
So,
from what I understand, if there's ever anything like a makeup call, it usually happens inside the game. Usually it's on just like strikes. Like say it's on the corner of the zone and it's not given, they'll either not give one against the other pitcher in the same spot, or they'll actually give a questionable strike later.
Oh, that's a great point. That happens in the same at bat sometimes. I've seen it in an at bat where, the first pitch is like, inside corner and should be a strike, and they call it a ball. And then 2 pitches later, when it's a 2-1 count, there's like a pitch outside corner that's even further outside, and they'll call it a strike to make it 2-2 instead of 3-1. I've seen that dozens of times where in the same at bat, you're like, oh, that strike was worse, wasn't as close as the other one that was called a ball. So anyway.
Indeed. So okay, let's just have a quick chat here with Rob about a couple of points here. So
how dare you call me Brad? Is that an insult or a compliment?
Replacing one Canadian contributor to Grand Slam KBO with another. So on Tuesday, the Tigers blow a 6-3 lead in the 9th and eventually lose in 10 against the LG Twins. Friday, they're leading after 6 and then amazingly lose 10-4. Saturday, as we discussed, a 3-0 lead in the 8th is evaporated in the same inning and go on to lose 4-3 with some contribution there from the umpires. And then on Sunday, a 6-3 lead is blown, and then almost an 8-6 lead is blown as well. And I'm pretty sure during the conversations we have throughout the season, up until perhaps a month ago, even less than that, we used to always say Pak Jung-pyo, John Sang-yeon, and then Moon-kyung Chan before he left. The Tigers have probably had the best 1-2-3 to come out of a bullpen. And now every single pitcher that comes out of the bullpen, no matter where it is, at what point it is in the game, they all look like at this point that they could throw the game for the Tigers.
Yep, that's the thing. Early in the season, the bullpen was their strength, and as you just mentioned, the big three, Moon-kyung Chan was rolling. He had 10 saves, that ERA of under 2. Jun Sang-hyun and Jun-pyo, they were the 2 setup guys. They were both rolling, and the starting pitchers were also going deeper into games at that point as well. So as the season's gone on, Jun-pyo is now hurt, which doesn't help. Moon-kyung Chan, his struggles are obvious. He had those 3 or 4 meltdowns and obviously got traded to NC. And so now Jun has moved into the closer's role, and for the most part, he's been good. I mean, he had a tough week with the meltdown on Tuesday, and then he struggled again. I think it was on Friday. So he had a couple of tough appearances this week, but overall, his numbers are still very, very solid. But the injury to Junpyo has really hurt, and the fact that the starters, some of the starters have regressed as well. Like Gagnon isn't pitching as deep into games anymore. You can't really count on Minu for anything at this point. He had a quality start, I think two starts ago, which was surprising, but for the most part, he hasn't been doing very well lately. Yang seems to be turning the corner, hopefully. Brooks is awesome. Im Gi-young had a great outing the other day, but he's been pretty inconsistent recently. So if the starting pitching is struggling, then that obviously spills over and the bullpen becomes overworked. And then fatigue becomes a factor. And then, the bullpen, as a result, has struggled a lot more recently. So, that's pretty much all you can say, other than there has been that one bright spot, that really young kid who's like not even 19 years old. What's his name?
Young.
Yeah, he's come out of nowhere and quietly put together a very, very strong rookie season. And I'm not sure if his role is going to be in the bullpen or if they might try to transition him into a starter eventually. But he looks like he's the real deal, and a very, very pleasant surprise that came out of nowhere. Like, I didn't know anything about him until like a few weeks ago, and I'm like, hey, this kid's pitched like 15 games and his ERA is 1.5 or something. Nice to see him doing well.
So we'll get on to the Hall of Fame now in a second. That's the bullpen and the pitching in general. Another major issue for the Tigers all season has been injuries, especially with the infield. Kim Sun-bin and Ruja Yak, the guy that they traded from the Doosan Bears. Lee Chang-jin, who should be their starting center fielder and leadoff batter, is also out. They all seem to have the same injuries too.
Leg injuries, yeah.
Yeah. Now, yesterday and recently on My KBO, we've had plenty of discussion on first base, second base, third base, and shortstop, whoever they put in these days. Actually, oddly enough, yesterday on Sunday, all four infield starters were not actually too bad in the end. But for me, I always kind of thought the Tigers would finish 7th or 8th before the season started, and I think ultimately that's where they'll finish as well. If Kia are short of one or two players due to injury, there's very, very little for them to fall back on, and we're really beginning to see that at the moment.
That's the thing. Their lack of depth in their infield has been very much exposed this year because Kim Sun-bin has been seriously hurt. Like, this is the 3rd time he's been on the disabled list for an extended period of time. And the two primary backups are Gyu-sung and the other guy, I forget his name, but they're both batting like well under 200. I think Gyu-sung may be creeping a little bit closer to 200 now based on a couple of hits yesterday. But there was a point a couple of weeks ago where Gyu-sung would start and he was batting like 172 or something, and then they'd bring in the other guy to pinch hit who was hitting 168. Like, they were identical, like identical hitters who would do nothing. So the depth at second, they have no backup second baseman that can contribute offensively. Gyu-sung's been great when he plays second base. Kim Gyu-sung has been fantastic. He's made some really nice plays at second, but then they tried him at shortstop a couple of times, and that just did not go well at all. But I mean, Park Jun-ho, I mean, he's remained healthy, but he's a career 234 hitter who's currently batting about 234. Like, this is all we're gonna get from Chan-ho is about a 230 average with a spectacular play in the second inning, and then he'll boot a routine ground ball in the 5th inning type thing. So it's always an exciting drama with him. Third base, obviously, there's been a giant hole because Lee Bum-ho retired last year, and they didn't properly plan a succession from him. So they tried to get the ex-Kiwoom guy. He had his shot at the start of the year. That was a disaster. And then Yu looked like he had some potential, but like he got hurt, like 3 games or 4 games into his Kia career. He suffered that massive leg muscle tear, and he's been out for a couple of months now. So yeah, the infield is frustrating. I mean, and then first base, Youman Song started out the year well over 300, but his average is down into the 260s right now.
Yeah.
With 4 home runs and about 40 RBIs, which is, better than I can do. But I mean, it's just not getting the job done. You need some legitimate production out of your first baseman, and they haven't gotten quite enough. That's for sure. So
yeah, I think we just talked about this for ages and ages. And like the catching situation isn't very good either, and then they have trouble then with center field because Mr. Chang Jin is who should be their center fielder, but he's out injured, and Hodong might be a really good fielder, but he's not a good batter. There are problems all over that roster, and that's why I still think they're going to come up short now in the end. Once the music stops, I still see them finishing probably in 7th spot, unfortunately. Last point on the Tigers end before we move on. Matt Williams, it's the first time we've ever seen a foreign manager with the Kia Tigers. They tend to review a lot of stuff in the games. We were talking about this before we came on the air earlier on, and that's one thing that seems to have changed from previous seasons. And then the other one is the amount of trades that the Tigers were involved in this year. Do you think that is do you think Williams is anything like his past life in Major League Baseball has got anything to do with that, or is this solely to do with the general manager?
That's a great question that I don't know the answer to, because I don't know if Williams has any influence with the general manager or not. That's sort of a Kia insider thing, because some baseball teams, the manager will have a lot of power with regards to the roster, and if he wants changes, and a good relationship with the general manager to pull those trades. Whereas other teams, it's a very big separation. The manager just manages, or the coaches, I guess, and the general manager is the one who does all the trades. So I don't know. Basically, oftentimes, you and I know this, Kia should probably just hold off on some of those trades, because the one example that we have from last year is when they traded Lee Myung-gi, a career like 295 hitter, who's usually at the top of the NC lineup now, still batting 300. They traded him for, what's his name, Usong?
Yeah, Usong. Yeah.
Who's batting like I'm not kidding. He's batting 0.43 or something for the season with the Tigers, with like no home runs, and sits on the bench or goes down to the minors and has some production in the Futures League, but big deal. So that trade was just a monumental failure for Kia.
Yeah. Even
though, Tucker has taken over in right field, and Naji Wan has had a great bounce back season in left field. You'd love to see Myung-gi's bat in that lineup. Yeah. Slapping singles and getting on base and that kind of thing. So yeah, let's just slow down on the trades here, Kia. There's no need to to break up the roster and give up good players for guys that often, that's the thing, they often have like a good series against Kia,
and then
which is what happened with Usong, and they'll just trade for him and say, oh, this guy must be really great, and turns out not so much.
Great stuff. Thanks very much for all that, Rob. Your thoughts around the Kia Tigers. It's time for KBO, Grand Slam KBO Hall of Fame. Matthew, who won last week?
Well, with a resounding response from the My KBO Facebook page. If you are not a fan of it, go there and join it. Many, many people on that page saw sense, and I'll go through the runners-up first. Give me a second real quick to load it up. I don't want to get my numbers wrong. I do know that it's a landslide victory for me, at the very least.
I felt like that was coming. It was pretty obvious based on the build-up.
Yeah.
But wait to hear his choice, though.
Oh, God. It's doing that thing where it's not going to load quickly.
Tragedy for you. Tragedy.
I know. I guess we'll never know the result. But we do know that a resounding winner. Last I checked, it was 25-7-3. was the trash bags for the Lotte Giants.
Oh, no, that was the winning thing?
Dreadful,
Oh,
isn't
yes.
it?
Oh, for shame, my KBO fans. For shame. I used to
The,
ruthlessly mock those. I thank my lucky stars. I just didn't end up in Busan and have to wear those garbage bags in the 8th inning as a Lotte fan.
They
And I
do
ended up
keep
in
the stadium
Guangzhou.
very clean afterwards, though.
That is true. That is a good point. But yeah, was never a fan of the garbage bag on the head for sure.
To be fair, I don't think that was ever the intention of the team. It was just something that the fans did out of sheer lunacy. Like, it's like, we've been given this to clean up. What can we do with it for like 2.5 innings? I know.
A little too much soju in the stadium back in the day, and the result was the garbage bag hat, I guess.
Yep. I just love the way, though, that female fans will like take such delicate care to fold it and then just rip it in half and then wear it as like dragon wings on their head as well. So yeah, the runner-up for that was Jiho Yu's choice of...
I got 3 votes.
Of Felix Jose going berserk and throwing the bat in the stands. When I believe it was a Samsung fan ended up throwing a water bottle at him. Quick addendum to last week when we were talking about Jose's going berserk. It was Jose Cabrera during an SK and Samsung game that ended up running through the Wyverns dugout into the Samsung dugout and continuing the brawl. Where, like, I think some of the team benches were brandished as shields against him.
The good old days of KBO. What did I nominate that only got 3 votes again?
I don't know. Probably wasn't important.
Ouch.
But some of the decision-making regards to the Hall of Fame has been a disaster. When I nearly lost out on the 4 for 10 special in the convenience store. When
Games on Sunday was what you picked.
What?
2 p.m. starts on Sundays.
Oh, no, Brad picked that a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, I nearly lost out in the 4 for 10 because Brad chose the Seoul subway system. And then didn't my KBO... Well, I guess now we can understand why my KBO wasn't voted if they're going to keep giving 27 votes to garbage bags on heads.
I believe yours, I'm looking at it here. It says the KBO schedule for August was your thing.
That's the one. I knew it was something to do with scheduling.
I thought it was a good one. All right, so we might as well let our guest go first. Rob Smith, what is your nomination for Grand Slam KBO Hall of Fame?
Well, this is my first time on the show, and I'm a Kia fan, as everyone knows, so I have to do a Kia connection. And I've been ranting and raving about this for the last couple of months. And so I have to give a shout out to our boy Pak Chun-ho, and I'm going to nominate, let's go with his long flowing hair for the KBO Hall of Fame, because it's legendary. And as you know, we see it every game because his helmet is 3 sizes too big, which is clearly intentional because he wants to show off that beautiful hair for the ladies. So I'm going to nominate Pak Chun-ho's hair for the Hall of Fame.
What kind of conditioner do you think he uses? Like,
is
way too
he's
shiny.
Probably working towards an endorsement deal as we speak, for sure.
He's got to be batting better than 238 to get an endorsement deal, but there's probably some merit in what you're saying. So Pak Chun-ho's hair is the nomination from Rob Smith for Hall of Fame. He could have picked a few things with him, those tight pants that he wears, or the helmet, or the fact that they tried to make him captain last season because he had a run of form for about 4 months. And
that's right. He was so good for the first couple of months last year. Was well over 300. I remember praising him on the sports segment that I do, saying, "This is like my new favorite Tiger. He's like a young leader. He's up and coming." And then he just...
We're never going to lose again.
After the All-Star game, he just crashed. His average tanked the second half of the year, and we all know how he's done this year. That's for sure.
Did he get voted into that All-Star team?
No.
I don't know if he was an All-Star last year. That's a good question. I don't know.
He was a captain's pick last year, or the coach's pick, whatever they call it. He wasn't actually voted in.
Nothing left to prove then.
Yeah. Okay, Pak Chun-ho's hair. Matthew.
Mine And as you can see, for these two guys, I've basically had a spinning GIF of the world going on, of the world basically on fire for
Yes, I
me
can
the
see
entire
that.
time. And the reason for that is my pick is oversized baseballs.
Okay. What's the
Photo
justification?
balls of the team mascots that are the size of your face that you can buy in the team stores. I've got my one here for the Lotte Giants with the Lotte mascot on it and the big G that they used to have for their logo. I've got this with even one of the little plinth stands that they give you that if you turn it upside down, it looks like it could be like one of the things that the judge slams their gavel onto.
Oh, nice.
It's one of those beautiful little display pieces that no true KBO fan should be without. Oversized baseballs. Get yours signed today.
Fair enough. Good choice. All right, Andrew, what's
Farrell.
yours?
Matthew, can I ask you to share this, to allow me to share the screen? I can show you guys when I go into pick.
Oh, you've got a thing as well. There you go.
Thank you.
Props. I didn't know there were props involved in this podcast.
I'm going with celebrity ceremonial first pitches by celebrities in the KBO, especially this one here.
Oh, which of course you're showing this one.
Of course.
So
that's not the one I thought it would have been.
Well, there's the numerous choice. So there's a great video that Danny Kurtz put up on my KBO, his website, Clara Shinsuji, and that was by Taimi, who apparently is a Korean taekwondoist and actress. And because a lot of those celebrity first pitches are pretty bad. You'll see people throwing them into the turf or nearly hitting the batter on the head. But for some reason, Doosan seemed to go through this spell a number of years ago where the people throwing the pitches will be doing absolutely ludicrous, I don't know, dances or flicks and jumps and stuff. Like for example, this one here, which is coming up on our screen.
This is one of my favorites.
This is the one I thought you were going to do, Suji the gymnast.
Yeah. So I think ceremonial first pitches are absolutely terrible. It was funny when they got Moon Jae-in to do it before the Tigers Doosan game in 2017. I think if you're going to do it, a politician perhaps. I don't know, maybe not even a politician, but I find them kind of ridiculous. But the KBO ones tend to be pretty funny, though. You never really know what you're going to get when those people go up onto the pitcher's mound to throw that ball.
Yeah, the former US ambassador Lippert threw out a couple of good pitches before.
They should do the oversized baseball that Matt is nominating as well.
Oh, throw one of these things. Just dodgeball it towards the catcher.
With one of those giant oversized plastic bats as well.
Oh, that'd be brilliant.
Look like a cartoon, for sure.
Bit of Bugs Bunny going there.
Superb stuff, guys. Thanks for your time. Before we let you go, Rob, we'll probably get you on the show again towards the end of the season when Pak Jun-ho is batting .310 and the Tigers come from nowhere to finish in second spot.
That will be recorded and played back later in the season, I'm sure. That little quote right there.
So before we let you go, from a Tigers point of view, on the road this week, up in Seoul and Incheon, Doosan away, SK Wyverns away, before finally hosting the KT Wiz ahead of the table. This looks like a type of a week series, 6 games that could very well decide their fate for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
I think they'll come out of that with 1 or 2 wins at most. I
mean, if they can go 3-3 this week, I'd be reasonably satisfied. Like if they can split all 3 series. Who's starting tomorrow?
Imino.
So it's a two-start week for Minu. So that definitely darkens their chances of success right there. Might have to alter my prediction from 3-3 to 2-4 now. Because Minu in Jamshil is not a good combination.
Yeah.
Brooks just started yesterday, so he's going to go probably on Saturday at home against KT.
Yeah.
Which means Yang will go Friday against SK, so they should win that one. So yeah, 2 or 3 wins. I mean, If they can get 3 wins, I'll be pretty happy this week. Let's leave it at that.
Okay. It's not looking too promising. And then just for yourself, Matt, your team are definitely hitting a bit of form at the right time. SK Wyverns at home, then the Akeem Heroes at home before. Oh, they're home all week, are they? And then the Hanwha Eagles at home. What a great week for the Lotte Giants.
Potentially.
Yeah, if they don't
put away 5 wins this week, like 4 I could see with Kium maybe knocking them off in the midweek, but I don't see any scenario where Lotte don't put away 4 or potentially 5 this week.
4-2 is doable for sure.
I'll be optimistic and say 5. It's their chance to stake their claim for a playoff berth.
Yeah, you might as well. This is the last round of action for the month of August, which has been a brutal month if you're a Tigers fan. But anyway, Rob Smith, thank you for joining us in Grand Slam KBO, your debut.
My pleasure. Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a great time, great chat. I love talking baseball. So thanks for inviting me. Appreciate it.
No problem. We'll have a word with you again sometime in the future, maybe before the season is done. Matt, enjoy the baseball for the rest of this week. As we were, again, I'm sorry, we probably should mention this, but there was a possibility that there mightn't even be any baseball to watch into September if the COVID-19 cases do not start to go down in Korea. And Daniel Kim on Twitter was talking about this today. So this is a really big week for the KCDC over here. And then because of that too, obviously the KBO.
Yeah, fingers crossed the numbers. They dropped off yesterday from the day before. There was, I think, around 400 cases 2 days ago, and I think it was under 300 yesterday. So a sort of a bright light. But again, yeah, well, hopefully the numbers continue to stabilize and decrease for the rest of the week, because it's definitely wasn't heading in the right direction as of a few days ago.
Yeah, the number's still going to increase for a couple of days. If not the sheer volume of increase, it'll probably stick around the 300, hopefully, and not explode from there. But a lot of that's down to that one guy at the protests basically telling people not to pay for things with cards and pay with cash and to turn off their phones so that they'd be hard to trace. Like, that has not helped the effort at all.
My goodness, I didn't even know about that. That's crazy stuff.
Yeah, there's a thing about it in the newspapers online right now. If anyone wants to find it, I'm not going to name it because of libel laws in Korea, but it's easy enough to search and find online.
Well, on that depressing note, great stuff, gentlemen. Have a lovely week. Whatever baseball is on, hopefully it stays on. Watch it all, and take care. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Have a good one, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.